Last I checked, Rhodey is a Skrull.
What?
Hey, welcome back to ScreenCrush. I'm Ryan Airy, and this is all of the Easter eggs, references, and little things you might have missed in Episode 5 of Secret Invasion, Harvest. Now, we have so much to talk about in this episode, breaking down the meaning of the name Harvest, all the Easter eggs, and who Fury was talking to at the end.
Who was it?
We don't know for sure, but I got a couple theories I'm going to talk about a little later in the video, so let's get started. Now, I've been pretty critical of this show in our talkbacks, but I don't think this show is bad, just that it could have been so much better. Episode 5 gave us some of the very best and worst of the series, but man, when this show soars, it soars. Fury's monologue at the end was top-tier cinematic entertainment, and Sonya Falsworth always lights up the screen. I'm going to talk more about them and what I think is working as we go along. Now, the name of the episode is Harvest in quotation marks, which has a few meanings. Placing the title in quotes kind of denotes that Harvest is a code name, which we learn is true. Harvest is the name that Fury gave to the superhero blood they collected after the Avengers defeated Thanos.
They did what? Jeez, that's cold.
Yes, it is. But Harvest has a few other meanings in the context of this episode. In the first episode, we saw that the Skrulls were planting crops in new Skrullos. And as we talked about in our episode 1 breakdown, planting crops is a way of colonizing land, calling it your own, literally putting down roots. But Gravik isn't just sowing crops, he was planting seeds within his people. With each new recruit, he gains another person who is loyal to his cause, another soldier for his war. Gravik is planning on reaping this harvest using his soldiers in the war against Earth and Fury. And as we see in this episode, he would sacrifice all of his people to get what he wants, more power for himself. So when his people stage a coup against him, it's also like he's reaping what he's sowed. He trained these people to commit violence, and they return that violence upon him. You can also say that the entire Earth is his harvest, a planet where he's been planting spies, which he's now ready to call into action by doing...
Hey, just a second, person. Hello? Hey, person, guess what? I want a vacation. Or I owe taxes. It's hard to tell.
Hang it up.
But my tax-paying vacation trip.
It's a scam robocall, buddy. Now hang it up.
Oh, that's disappointing. But how did they even get my number?
That's the shady part about it, man. They got your number and email from some online data broker. See, the internet is a lot like Secret Invasion. Everybody out there is pretending to be someone else, and you just don't know who to trust. See, I also used to get a ton of spam emails and phone calls just like that one, but now I never get those calls because I signed up for Incogni. They're the sponsor of this video. Incogni is by far one of the best products we talk about here on the channel. This is the app that they don't want you to know about. You guys would be shocked at how much of your information is just out there on the internet, like your address, your phone number, your personal health and financial history. It's all out there for people to buy. Incogni found 108 brokers that were selling my sensitive information. Guys, I'm talking my financial details, my health history, my internet search history, and they were selling this information to the highest bidder. Many of them were rated 10 out of 10 for personal data sensitivity, and they were selling information about my personal health risks, my insurance provider, my credit types, really scary stuff.
Well, how'd they get all that information from you?
Oh, dude, these companies can get your information so easy that it's scary. Like, if you sign up for a loyalty card or a newsletter, then these companies will sell your data to giant firms called data brokers that then sell your information to other advertisers. But here's the thing, these data brokers have to remove your name from their database if you ask them to.
Gee whiz, but I don't have time to contact all those companies and do all that. I got a Lego Death Star to build.
Yep, Doug, no one has that kind of time, but that's where Incogni comes in. They contact those companies for you. You don't have to do anything, and they alert you when the request has been completed. After I signed up, I get almost no spam, and I cannot even remember the last time I got a spam phone call from unknown number. So I highly recommend giving Incogni a try. Use my code ScreenCrush with the link below to get 60% off an Incogni plan. It is a great deal that you don't want to miss. Now back to Secret Invasion. Last week was a massive shakeup for the show, ending on a cliffhanger. Talos died, saving the president's life. Ritson was injured, Rhodey was a Skrull, and Gravik has the powers of extremists and... Now, I'm not going to spend the entire video being critical of this show, but I do want to talk about how this opening scene illustrates the problem the show is having. I keep saying that Secret Invasion should feel big when it feels small, and that's not because it doesn't have a large cast of superheroes or a copy of the comic book's globe-spanning plot. The show feels small because in places the flat TV lighting make it feel cheap. Even though this show had a $200 million budget, there's sequences that feel like they were filmed with a bare bones budget, like this opening. I mean, think about this. The President of the United States was just shot. Some of the agents and soldiers in the motorcade are still alive. Rhodey is still alive. Some other people would be in this hallway with Fury. Now, if the president was shot, even on foreign soil, do you think the next scene would look like this? One guy wheeling him into a brightly lit hospital? Compare this to the production value of a show like ER.
Sector 3, that way. Which way? That way.
Or like in the movie JFK when they dramatize the president arriving at the hospital.
Doctor?
Who's the attendant?
Right now. It is just you.
There are 100 ways to shoot this to make it feel vibrant, dark, kinetic, and instead it's done fast and cheap. And we see that all through the show. Instead of creating dark corners and shadows, there's like even flat lighting or fog that just makes everything feel flat and not cinematic. Anyways, enough nitpicking. The silver lining of this attack is that the press sees a shape-shifting alien save the president's life. So the public now know that Skrulls exist, just not how many of them are on Earth. And in a way, Talos fulfilled his goal, to talk to the president and show him that they were not a threat.
We tell him, guess what? Just saved your planet. Now, give me a little something in return.
And then Gravik returns to New Skrullos, his mission a failure. Now, I was a little disappointed by this scene, just a little bit. So, I thought that the MCU created a really compelling original villain with Gravik. Somebody with relatable motivations who was a leader to his people, like an alien Che Guevara.
Who's Che Guevara?
My roommate had a poster of his head in college.
Oh yeah, Che Guevara.
So, Gravik was all nuanced, but then, the moment one of his people challenged his authority, this happens. So this reminded me a little bit of the Flag Smashers in Falcon and the Winter Soldier, a group of villains who make some really solid points, so you know they had to add in a scene where they kill innocent people.
There were still people in there.
This is the only language these people understand.
So we wouldn't sympathize with the villains too much. But in this case, we're seeing that Gravik doesn't really want to find salvation for his people. He wants power. He wants the powers of all the Avengers, and he wants total power over all the Skrulls and over Earth. Now this does explain why he's kept Fury alive though, because he wants the harvest. Now you know it's interesting that this guy says,
You ordered Fury's death when you knew Vara would never do it.
now this opens up the door for the idea that Vara is still Team Gravik. Like maybe she kept Fury alive until Gravik could find out where the harvest was. I doubt if that's what's going on, but it is a possibility. So this was all foreshadowed a few episodes ago when Pagon was chastised for not gathering the motherlode of all the samples.
You don't have it.
Harvest wasn't there.
So after Gravik kills him, he gives the Skrulls the most devastating insult you can lay on them.
You're faceless, and you're nameless.
Remember, the Skrulls have spent decades on Earth working as spies, assuming the faces and names of others while being unable to live lives for themselves, under their own names, in their own skin. It's why their #1 goal, the ideal that brought Beto to join them to begin with, is
Home. In my own skin.
And then Gravik changes his master plan to show us just how ruthless he is. He tells Rhodey to leak the location of New Skrullos to goad the president into wiping out his people. He does this for 2 reasons. 1, he knows that Fury will do anything to save Skrull lives, so it's leverage to get the harvest. And 2, it's a way to get the president to launch an attack on Russian soil. Now, I do think that Gravik would evacuate New Skrullos before an attack was launched, but this still shows how his main pursuit is power instead of his people. The Skrull Rhodey shows up at the hospital to finally lock down the location. And then we get a standoff between Rhodey and Fury where you can tell that Don Cheadle is thrilled to finally have something to do with this character.
When is it my turn? Don't I get a dream for myself? Starting now, it's gonna be my turn. Gangway roll, get off of my runway.
As Skrull Rhodey is able to act more like herself, you can really see this maliciousness seeping through. And Cheadle even gives the character more of a feminine quality. As this Skrull, Rava, can feel that she's so close to finally living in her own skin.
You don't want to kill me because you're not ready to die. But being as I'm not one to pull a gun and not use it, let me give you a little heads up.
The scene ends with Fury being a fugitive for the murder of Maria Hill, but probably not for long. Then we go to London to my favorite character in the show, Olivia Colman's Sonya Falsworth, whose delightful alien torture always brings a smile to my face. She teased last episode that her boss, Director Weatherby, was a Skrull, and here we have the payoff. I even love the way she's not worried about getting caught by guards after firing a pistol at her director, because she knows that they'll walk up to him and see his Skrull wound.
Wait, if it's that easy to expose somebody as a Skrull, then why don't they just take a blood sample from everyone, like in The Thing?
Hey, that's enough. So she uses this guy to get info on the Super Skrull machine, while the current Super Skrull, Gravik, faces an insurrection from his own people. They try to suffocate him and he reverts back to his Skrull form. Now, I'm wondering if this is because he's near death or because he's reverting back to his own skin as a show of strength and power. Either way, it's pretty badass. The fight also shows how Gravik is still getting used to his new powers. For instance, he doesn't use his extremis abilities to burn away the bag, because for him, those abilities are still just a way to heal himself. And he eventually uses his Groot arm, but not until later in the fight. We still haven't seen him break out Cull Obsidian's super strong skin, which I'm sure will come into play next episode. Then he takes Beto out for a very violent, very public execution. But remember, Beto was the idealistic, sweet young Skrull that we met in episode 1, who was so happy to finally have Skrull food to eat. Now, we've talked a lot about how Gravik is using the terrorist playbook of recruiting young people, promising them the world, and then using them up for their own selfish ends. So this is a very tragic but all too common fate for Beto. I guess we can nix those theories that he was Fury's secret son.
You are not the father.
Fury then goes to his safe house and sees that his security tape inside has been broken. Now, this is the same place where the Skrulls first swore to spy for Fury way back in 1997. Fury gives us some appropriate backstory to this place, talking about how it was a refuge from the Nazis and eventually refugees from the West Indies settled there.
So Nazis attacked the West Indies?
No.
Separate incidents.
The West Indies influence also explains the artwork on the wall, which we pointed out in past breakdowns goes back to the series' use of faces in its production design. The walls are always filled with faces, clock faces, sculptures, photos, paintings, to show the many faces of the Skrulls. But also it goes back to the idea that the Skrulls are still searching for a face, or searching for a racial identity. They have survived a Holocaust that tried to wipe them from history. Now, I've mentioned in past breakdowns how the show seems to be a metaphor for the experience of Black Americans. Skrulls have had their cultural identity stolen from them, like African slaves, and their children have had to make a home for themselves on foreign soil. So it's fitting that Fury chose this place as a haven for Skrull refugees. He has a little catch up with Gaia before this masterpiece of a moment.
Oh shit. I'll be in touch.
Just terrible, like something out of The Room.
I have to go home.
Like, are these sirens specifically looking for Fury? Are the cops about to bust in? Wouldn't he be safer in the secret safe house? I don't know, just moving on. It was a really funny way for him to leave a scene. On to more delightful Sonya mayhem.
Hello, Skrulls.
She offers them a choice.
Cake or death?
Which is taken from a brilliant Eddie Izzard stand-up bit.
Cake or death? Cake, please. Very well. We're gonna run out of cake at this rate.
Sonya is like a pre-blip Fury, always in control, always with a cool comeback.
The males in my species are very similar. If they're not busy gaslighting you, they're threatening you with murder. That's what all the podcasts are about.
And then Gaia enters Fury's home, and this is the first time we've had a good look at this particular artwork on the wall of these like fluid shapes. Now I can see why this art would attract the interest of a Skrull. It's formless, changing.
Like how the Skrulls shapeshift.
Yes, but also it reflects the state of the Skrulls in this galaxy. They are without a unified national identity, so they are metaphorically formless. I could imagine that the art in their original world was much more permanent and stoic, with grand statues of the Skrull Emperor. Basically, the longer a people live in a single place, the larger and more elaborate their artwork becomes. For instance, the Jewish people were a diaspora scattered across the world for thousands of years, so their religious art tended to be small objects that could be taken with them, whereas Catholicism flourished in Europe for centuries, so the church was able to build these massive cathedrals. Anyways, you can tell a lot about society from their art, like Thrawn says.
To defeat an enemy, you must know them, not simply their battle tactics, but their art.
And then we go back to Ritson, who for some reason is all alone in his hospital room. I don't know if this was because of COVID restrictions, but there should be doctors, security, aides, cabinet members, or at least like a guard from the Secret Service. All this hospital stuff is very bare bones and feels very cheap to me. This is where Rhodey offers Ritson the bait to start World War III, hoping that he feels vulnerable enough to order an attack as revenge on the Skrulls. The world also knows that a Skrull saved Ritson's life though, so Talos' sacrifice might just end up tilting Ritson's judgment and saving the world. Wouldn't it just be awesome? Okay, wait, like just the best. If Ritson did start World War III and like that's where Captain America Brave New World picked up with like a nuclear war happening. Like I know that won't happen because this show's more of like a character drama about Fury and we've got the Marvels coming out first, but damn, that would be killer. Even more of a game changer than the collapse of S.H.I.E.L.D. And then Fury gets on a private jet provided by a pretty awesome cameo. This is the Handmaid's Tale O.T. Fagbenle as Mason.
Wait, where have we seen him before?
In Black Widow. He's the one who provided Nat with a safe house and by the end of the movie a Quinjet. Now we also had a pretty huge crush on her.
You've always been a really good friend to me.
It's what every man wants to hear.
It would have been nice to have seen him address her death with Fury right here, like, I'm doing this for Nat, I miss her, I'm not doing it for you, but still, it's a really fun cameo. He says,
Still a lot better if we were on the helicarrier.
That's been mothballed.
And you remember that even after S.H.I.E.L.D. fell, Fury kept one helicarrier stashed away.
Pulled her out of mothballs with a couple of old friends.
Now, in Age of Ultron, the old friend is implied to be Cameron Klein, the agent who stood up to Hydra in The Winter Soldier. But the show Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., which is not technically part of the main MCU universe, revealed that Agent Coulson helped get the helicarrier out of mothballs. Gaia and Varro give Talos a Skrull burial, which is actually a lot like a Jedi burial, except a Skrull burial demands an artifact that ties the person to this world. Also, it's so sad that Gaia doesn't know the proper prayers to lay her dad to rest.
I don't know the prayer.
Because she grew up without a real home or ties to her own culture. This leads nicely into Varra talking about her home. She loved this house, but she also needed to find a house that suited Fury. It's a lovely monologue that ends up being symbolic of what Gaia asks her next.
You ever get lost watching you in your own skin?
Now this is showing how she is still attracted by Gravik's message, but also illustrates the wall that will always exist between the Furies. Can Nick Fury ever accept his wife in her Skrull form?
Yeah, I bet this series ends with Nick Fury totally making out with an alien.
I think you're right. Another unintentionally hilarious moment happens when Varra is describing how she wants to fight Gravik off in her own house while standing in front of really large windows.
I'd rather meet the bastard standing right here in my happiness than to meet them running down some dark alley.
Lucky thing that sniper missed. Pretty solid if standard action scene where the two of them go back to back to fight off these invaders.
Hey, I got a question. If they wanted to kill her, why didn't a Skrull just become a piece of furniture and then, like, kill her after she fell asleep?
Because they don't do that.
What about a filing cabinet?
Why would I turn into a filing cabinet?
Then Fury uses the Widow's Veil to enter Finland. Now this is the face disguising tech we first saw in the Winter Soldier and then in Agents of S.H.I.E.L.D., and the last time we saw it was in Black Widow.
Welcome home.
Sonya meets him, and once again, she is the coolest character in the show.
This what we're doing?
Yes, this is absolutely what we're doing. Seatbelt, please.
Then Fury spills the beans about what's really going on here. He reveals that Rhodey is a Skrull, and this is so weird that after the Battle of Earth,
Hey, wait, what's the Battle of Earth?
well, apparently that's the name given to the end battle in Avengers Endgame. Now that's pretty telling because it implies that it's the name given to the battle by all the alien species in the universe. Like, if it was just the people of Earth naming the battle, they would have called it the Battle of the Blip or the Battle of Thanos or something like that. But the Battle of Earth is what other worlds would be calling this fight. The fight that brought back half the universe. So this shows us that after running the Saber base for S.W.O.R.D. for so many years, Fury now has more of a galactic perspective. Anyways, Fury didn't waste a second after coming back. He immediately sent in the Skrulls to connect the genetic material of the Avengers.
Why would he do that?
Well, I've got a lot of theories on that I'm going to talk about in a video tomorrow, so make sure you subscribe so you don't miss a thing.
Cause you don't wanna miss a thing.
But you're right, it is pretty cold to think that the first thing Fury does after the battle is to collect genetic material of the heroes, and he sent in Gravik to get the material, giving him the idea to create Super Skrulls. So this finally reveals why this fight is so personal for Fury. He brings Sonya to a fake grave, but this is not the grave that we saw at the end of the Winter Soldier. It has a different epitaph. My guess is that this is his grave from after he blipped, because the epitaph implies that he died saving the world. Then, in a beautifully performed monologue, Sam Jackson lays out Fury's arc for the show. Sonya asks him the question we've all been asking: why isn't he asking superheroes for help? And he replies,
We can't keep depending on these superheroes to swoop in and save our asses. None of them can defend the world the way I can.
This is fascinating because Fury's whole deal since the events of Captain Marvel is that he thinks we need heroes because, well, as another ordinary guy put it,
we are not enough.
He ends by saying,
If that ain't enough, maybe I am just dust.
Now this goes back to the heartbreaking moment of Infinity War, when the universe showed Fury just how small and powerless he was. Now, it's a little messed up that he's willing to put the entire Earth at risk just to validate his own existence, but this is still damn good writing. After he gets the vial from his grave, he enters this crypt, which has some very cool Easter eggs. Notice that the compartment where he keeps his Fury gear is covered in Norse runes. Norse as in Norse mythology, like Thor. Now, in our trailer breakdown, we noticed that you couldn't really make out the bottom runes, but here you can read them all. And see, like, Norse runes are weird. They're kind of like hieroglyphics where each character is an object, so, like, all of this tells a story. So stay with me here. This means Ice Challenge, Water Ocean, Protection, Haven Odin, Danger Giant, Rain, Joy Harmony Kinship, the Sun, Honor Thunderbolt, Danger Challenge, Journey Thor, Psycho Trickster, Gathering. And this is spelling out Fury's history in the MCU. The Skrulls sought out a haven on Earth. There was danger from the sky when the Destroyer came. Thor arrives on a Thunderbolt to challenge the Destroyer. Thor journeyed home, and then the trickster Loki, who is in an endless cycle of loops, gathered together the Avengers.
That's so cool. So wait, who was Fury talking to at the end?
Oh, you mean this?
It's time. Let's finish this.
Could have been Guy or Priscilla, but my money is that it was your mom.
Wait, really?
No, I think it was Maria Hill. A lot of fans were miffed at how quickly she was dispatched in the opening episode, and I don't think that they're going to kill off somebody who's been around for that long, and who is played by such a well-known actor. Like, someday, Samuel L. Jackson's going to retire, and Maria Hill is the perfect candidate to replace him, just like she does in the comics. Well guys, that's all the Easter eggs we found, but if you found any, let me know in the comments below or at me on Twitter, and if it's your first time here, please subscribe, smash that bell for alerts. For ScreenCrush, I'm Ryan Airy.